This is the story of Ireneo Funes, a boy who possessed extraordinary powers of memory. He could recall everything he saw, read, thought, and even dreamt. I met him when I was visiting my cousin who lived near a little village of Fray Bentos in the South America. Approaching the village, we stumbled upon a little boy, age of 9, and asked him his name and if he could tell what time it is. The little boy responded that his name is Ireneo Funes and told us time without looking at his watch. Years later, after the trip, I needed a place to escape from the noise of a big city and remembered the small village of Fray Bentos. I used to study Latin, so I packed my books and traveled back. When the mother of Ireneo Funes found out that I am in the village, she came to me and asked if I could lend some books to her son. She told me that her son cannot move after an accident that happened to him. He fell from a horse and lost his consciousness, and when he woke up he was paralyzed but discovered new extraordinary powers of memory. The bad fate of boy touched my heart so much that I lent him my books, but couldn't think of what use they could be to the boy since they were all written in Latin. When time came for me to leave, I stopped by his house to collect my books. He was sitting in the front porch and his face was lit up by a weak glow of his cigarette. He spent only 7 days with those books and he could recite them word by word in Latin. He was like the king of Cyrus of Persia who knew the names of all his soldiers, or like Mithridates who administered justice in 22 languages spoken in his empire. Funes could recall the shape of every leaf of every tree that he had ever seen in his life. This power came with a price. He lost his capacity for abstract thinking. For example, he couldn't understand the general word for a dog. Dog for him was too abstract. He needed to know specific breed and the color of the dog so he could imagine it in his mind. It was very difficult for him to sleep, since sleeping would require him to switch off his mind from this world. Hello guys, it's Vashik here and I hope you enjoyed my very brief retelling of one of my favorite stories of all time. It was written by the Argentinian writer Jorge Louis Borges. It's called Ireneo the Memorias. Borges finishes his story by saying that Funes managed to learn many languages, English, French, German and Latin, but he lost his capacity for thinking. He couldn't construct any coherent thought and all he could do is classify all the memories that he received each day. For Borges, a prodigious memory such as that is more a curse rather than a blessing, because it can be compared to this camera that I'm recording this video on, because this camera cannot distinguish what is important to record and what not. It will record every movement of every leaf that are on the trees behind me. But fortunately, that's not how our memory works. Our memory is capable of remembering and forgetting. And in the same way as I will edit out all the unnecessary noises, all my mispronunciations, or anything that is not important to this story, in the similar way our brain edits out our memories. And here is the car that is passing by that I'll edit out. But how exactly does our memory work? How does it select what is important to remember and what is necessary to forget? I found the partial answer to this question in an essay by a neuroscientist, Oliver Sacks. The essay is called Fallibility of Our Memory, and in that essay, Sacks tells the story of one of his most cherished memories. Even at the age of 60, he could remember how a bomb had fallen in the garden of their house during the Second World War, and how his father rushed with water to kind of put down the fire which was spreading all over the garden and coming very close to their house. He could remember how the entire family tried to put down this fire. But when he turned 60, he recalled this story to his older brother, and his older brother said, "Oliver, You were never present there on that day. You were far away at the boarding school. It was me who wrote a letter describing vividly every detail of that incident. Sachs was so moved and so surprised, especially as a neuroscientist, because he realized that one of the most cherished memories that had such a profound impact on him throughout his life was false. He never experienced it. He read about it. Beautiful sentence in the essay. He says that it is startling to realize that some of our most cherished memories may have never happened to us. Neuroscientists still don't know exactly how do we store our memories, but it seems that our brain focuses on experiences that have very intense feelings, and those kind of experiences are better stored in our minds. Sachs describes another phenomenon of how we remember things, and it's called cryptomnesia. One of the most famous people who experienced cryptomnesia quite often is English poet Samuel Coleridge. Samuel Coleridge had a prolific memory. He had extraordinary memory that could be compared to Funes the Memorious. His biographers mentioned that he could remember entire passages from books and recite them as if he is reading it straight from the page. But the problem was that much later on, Samuel Coleridge used to write certain ideas that he genuinely believed that it was his original ideas, but in reality he was copying German philosophers that he loved reading when he was young. Oliver Sacks mentioned several of these kind of works of Samuel Coleridge that were clear plagiarism according to our modern standards, but Samuel Coleridge couldn't know about it. He was just thinking that these ideas are coming to him as original ones, and that's how cryptomnesia works. We can read about an idea in a newspaper or in a book and then forget about this idea and then come up with this idea as if it is our own. And the interesting thing that one of the biographers of Coleridge says is that Samuel Coleridge experienced these phenomena of cryptomnesia most often when he was going through difficult parts of his life. So it seems that those German philosophers that had so profoundly influenced him came back to him unconsciously when he was going through very difficult emotions and feelings. And the reason why I decided to make this video and tell you the story of Funes the Memorious and of Oliver Sacks is because I believe that our minds and our memories work like a labyrinth. It has a lot of twists and turns, and although neuroscientists do not have answers to all of our questions, I believe that literature explored the topic of memory so extensively that it has many of the answers that we need. Because, for example, the German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche also wrote that it would be a terrible curse for anyone to not be forgetful, not to be able to filter out what is important and what is not. And of course, it is impossible not to mention here Marcel Proust, who dedicated his famous work entirely about how our memory works. And there is a quote by him where he says that remembrance of things past is not necessarily the remembrance of things as they were. It's such a simple quote that reveals so much about our memories. The fact that we cannot remember how exactly things happen to us is not because of our memory doesn't work like this camera that records everything. It is because we tell stories of what happened to us. We narrate our own life. We are the storytellers of our own life. And the famous Maya Angelou said that she has learned that people will forget what we say, or people will forget what we did, but they will never forget how we made them feel. This is perhaps another reason why I wanted to record this video, because I believe that it is very important how do we narrate our lives. Our narrations grow and become feelings, and those feelings become memories. And in the future, if we have too many bad narrations and too many narrations that won't support our future selves, it will be very difficult to correct and to tell story once again. I believe that's one of the reasons why many psychologists, especially cognitive behavior psychologists, ask their patients to write the story of their lives, because it allows those therapists and to the patients themselves to overview their lives. To thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed them. I'm still experimenting with many formats. I'm new on YouTube. I would be very thankful if you would let me know what do you think about this video and whether you agree that it is our feelings that form our memories.